we have studied in the last class. So your Cortex M3 microcontroller mainly has got 4 UARTs, and before you make use of this, we need to do some select lines, that is initializations. So which pin is connected. So as we know that the UART has got transmit and the receive data pin, and we need to connect, through your program, when you, initialize through the UART programming, which is TXD and the RXD pin of your respective general purpose IOs. Yeah, this is just to show that you have a microcontroller, and through the level shifter, like your RS-232, which can convert your the TTL logic to RS-232 logic, and you send it to your host, or whatever, say through host you are sending the data to the microcontroller. Okay. So when we program it, we've got a system initialization function. This will initialize the system clock frequency. So which will initialize the system clock frequency, then your PLL settings, and the peripheral clock frequency, because you will be using a particular downward, you have downscaling the system clock into the peripheral clock for the LPC 1768. Then you configure, as I just mentioned, the port pins, that is RX and the TX pins. Okay. So your P0.2 pin as TX and P0.3 as RX pin to enable the serial communication. Okay. So for serial communication, we'll be using the P0.2 and P0.3 pin. And you have an initialization function that you are, we have an entire code in the same initialization. You initialize the baud rate, for which there is a DLAB bit of your line control register. You make it high initially and load the specific value in the registers DLL and DLM for a particular clock frequency or peripheral clock frequency. What should be the value to be loaded in these registers? You will be loading it. Once you load it, you make this DLAB bit as low so that you latch it. You clear it. You clear the DLAB bit, which I already explained in the last class. When you have these two are for the receive and the transmission, and for a specific UART, whether the data is received or not, you will ensure through, that is the buffer register, then the specific bit in the status register, which is least significant bit, will be set when the data is received. And for transmission, you have the data which you are going to transmit will be sent through the transmitter hold register, and you monitor the specific bit in the status register. Okay, we'll come to know which bit is, but I've already shown you the register format of the status register. Okay. So this is just to ensure whether the data is transmitted or not, whatever the data you have holding in the register for transmission. Yeah, this is just to show you the line control register. So this is a general the UART initialization code. When I show you the specific, I think you would be able to appreciate better. But here, this is the data type, whatever you are using. Pin select, configure your the pins. So in our program, we need to know, it is based on the the connections which are used for the UART, whether it is P0.0 or P0.1, which pins are used in our code. This I took it from the general program, wherein he is using this is for RX and the port 01 for TX. Okay, so we need to refer the data sheet and enable the specific pin of the UART. Okay.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, here we are directly trying to access the registers of UART in a microcontroller. So this is a kind of bare metal programming of a microcontroller, right?
Yeah, simple.
Yes, ma'am.
So today I'll be discussing on the UART. UART initialization.
Yes.
Then let us see how this UART is used for transmitting a specific message.
Yes, ma'am. That's absolutely fine. Ma'am, my question is like these real-time operating systems, do they provide any functions or methods to use the UART directly?
Nothing as such. See, since in our code, in RTX, we'll be using just to see that whether the data is transmitted in, say, in any of your function. Suppose I have a two procedure or the two tasks. One of the tasks may be continuously transmitting a message, and the task would be some blinking something.
Yes,
right? Simple application. When I transmit a particular message through your UART, you need to know that, okay, how I am doing it.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you get it?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So here, this is the FIFO control register. As I mentioned, enable the FIFO control register and reset the FIFO buffers. Initially, we'll be resetting the FIFO buffers, which is done through your FIFO control register. Then format the character, whatever the format, you will be using the 8-bit data, 1 stop bit and no parity. The same thing will be taken, and you calculate the what data for the baud rate. I have shown you the formula for getting the value for a specific baud rate. You load that value in these two registers. I'm sorry. And once you are done with that, you clear the DLAB bit of the specific register. This is what DLAB bit you can see here, bit 8 of the LCR. So when I show the specific code, you will be knowing that, because there is nothing like a mugging kind of thing. If you know that, okay, which bit is used initially, when you need to set it, and then you have to clear it so that you can latch the value for the baud rate generation. So this function shows the transmitting a character. So transmitting a character. So you check until whether the previous transmission is done. You just keep holding it, and you'll be checking the status register specific bit. So we'll be checking the bit. If you remember the status register, I'll be using the bit 5, in the sense is the least significant bit, 0, 0, 0, 0, and 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So this bit is for the transmit checking for the whether the transmitter is empty or not. The bit 5 I am using, and this is for your receiver, whether the data is received or not. I'm just ensuring through the status register. So you'll come to know when I again show you the specific. So, but in a standard code, wait until the previous, whatever the transmission is done or not. Okay, till then you continue the, you stay in the loop. Okay, that is for the So wait till the previous character is transmitted and load the new character to be transmitted into the transmitter hold register. This is the steps for your transmission. Only for receiving, you will be receiving a particular character. Wait until the bit is cleared. In the sense, the least significant bit of the status register. You check the status register, the least significant bit, whether the data is completely received, the complete character. Okay, and you can return this character to wherever the variable you have reserved for. So wait till the character is received and copy the received data from receiver buffer to a specific memory location. This is the firmware. What are the specific thing we will be doing? You define the FIFO control register, line control register, line status register, transmitter buffer, receiver buffer, then your word length and DLAB, then FIFO control register, reset the FIFO control register, the specific bit. Okay, and this is what receiver and the transmitter, and define your direction register. Okay, so these are the definitions which we have in your the firmware which is already set up. That is, we call it as a configuration file. Yeah, instead of explaining this, I will show you the specific code in the key itself. Can you see the code? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
So a simple code is written over here. Let me start with the main code. As I've explained in your RTX code, we'll be having the main program, so initialization, wherein we are initializing the specific, one second, yeah. So system initialization, here you can see there is the UART initialization function. I'm calling the UART initialization function. Can you see the UART main function, I mean initialization function? Then I'm also having the system initialization function. I'm referring the main initialization function. I'm referring the main initialization function. Okay. Can you see the one which I have highlighted? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So in the main function, as you can see, I'm calling UART initialization function and the system initialization function with the priority assigned as the highest. As per the rule of RTX, first it should start with your system initialization function. So let me go to the system initialization function. Yeah, here. So initialization function, I'm having two tasks. So at least two tasks need to be there, task 1 and task 2. So task 1, I'm creating the task 1 given with the priority 2 and task 2 given with the priority as 1. The different priorities are given. So once you create these two tasks, I delete this so that I can save the space. Okay, so task 1. So initially it will start with the task 1 itself because it is the higher than the task 2. And let us see what are the ways in which I am using the scheduling policy so that it is switching to the task 2. Okay, otherwise it will when I keep on running with the task 1 itself. So task 1 with the priority 2 and task 2 with the priority 1, and you delete it. Okay. Yeah, that is about the initialization. And here the you can see I'm including the LPC 1768 and RTL.h header file and stdoh, and you give the task ID for the two tasks and define the various tasks, and okay, that is about the definitions. Okay, underscore task means it is a task, so initialization task. So it is mandatory for all your program, task 1 and the task 2. Then in my code, I'm using two messages. One is the message the main intent program here is to transmit a message which is welcome to ECE MIT till the end of the character. Maybe in my other program, meanwhile I'm counting something just to, otherwise there will be only one function or the one task. Just to have two tasks I'm using. So other variable like count1 and count2, some other message like I'm sending one number of times this message is displayed, something like that. I have a counter. Okay. Yeah, that is about the initialization which we are having in the program. There are any doubts, you please, otherwise, any doubts so far?
No,
Hello?
ma'am.
Yeah. Now, so we have seen the main function, initialization function. Now I'm going to the task 1. Okay, task 1. As I said, task 1 is the higher priority than the task 2. So we shall see what we are doing in the task 1. In task 1, I have a while one. I just increment here. If you see, I'm incrementing the value count1. Okay, initially count1 is 0. I'm incrementing it, and simply I'm putting message that task1. Putting the message as printf message task1. Okay. So so the result should say that task1, then welcome to whatever the message I am putting. Task1, how many times? That count. It will give you the number of times. Okay. So while message 1, okay, till the null character, whatever, you keep on transmit the message. Keep on transmit the message till the status register is the specific bit transmit. As I mentioned, Y2020 is bit 5. Okay, this is hex data. You remember is enable 0000, then 01 means bit 5 of your line status register. So you keep monitoring the status register bit. So this is a standard code which we have it throughout till that message is transmitted from the transmit hold register. Okay, so you could keep passing the message into the transmit hold register by monitoring it. So I++, then you make it 0, and I am forcing this function. I'm forcing. So this makes your task 1 to go to the blocked state. So this makes task 1 to go to blocked state. I'm forcing this, the delay of 100, as I have explained in my earlier class, that whenever I'm using this, the delay function, the task 1 will go to the specific the state, that is delay state, wait delay state, which means it is a blocking state. Whenever this task is going to block state, the other task which is in the ready list, which is task 2, even though it is lower priority than this, it gets a chance for the execution. So this will run it can run only till the delay whatever I have given here. That is a 1 second delay I have given. I have given a 1 second delay. So for a second, the task 2 can start. It can execute. So task 2 will take over, and in task 2 again the same way I have used count 2 just to say 1 0 1 2 3 4. Here also count 2 plus it increments, and the message to my message 2 is welcome to ECMIT. So while this till the null character, the same way, exactly the same, monitor the status register. So copy the message 2 into the transmit hold register. This is standard syntax LPC underscore UART0 /THR. Means this is the specific syntax we are using for the UART programming, UART0. That message will be copied in the hold register and keep incrementing the character to be transmitted. Then you make it 0. Here again I am using the delay wait function. This is just not to, even though this task 1 is having the higher priority than the task 2, it can, as soon as the 1 second time is over, it will go back to the task 1. Otherwise also, we have put a delay here so that we can visualize the results. So you have a delay wait so that this task also can go to the blocked. We will be able to visualize our the results. So this is about your switching between the two tasks. In task 1, what I am doing is simply putting a message that task 1 with the count. In task 2, I am having a specific message with the count value. So it keeps switching between the two tasks. So both the tasks interleave each other so that there is a specific, the function can execute. Now let us see the initialization function for the serial. So this is, we need to have this in all our code, wherever we are passing certain message. Okay, so which is very important. So far in our class, we have seen that the UART and various registers. So here I have just, in task 1 and task 2, I have just mentioned about the line status register. That is to monitor the data which you are going to transmit. To monitor the data which you are going to transmit. Now this initialization function, wherein you need to have sort of the power control register. Okay, to enable the specific clock, the peripheral clock of the UART, and the select pins, select lines of the UART, which particular pin here in the board which we are using, which is T0.2 for TXD of UART0 and port 03 for RXD. Okay, so you'll be using 50 of the pin select lines of the port, specific port. Yeah, that is about your select lines. Then the line control register. So always will be giving 83 initially because I'm enabling the divisor latch, the parity, and I'll refer the control register format. If I remember, the least significant bit will tell about your the character, the 2 bits will tell about the character type, And next we'll tell about the number of stop bit and whether you have parity, all those things. And in the next nibble, you'll be using the DLAB. Okay, you'll be enabling it first, then load the value in these two registers. Here it is a specific value which is given for 25 megahertz for 9600 baud rate with your 25 megahertz as the clock you use, that is peripheral clock. The value which you get is 0, 0 and A2. The low value is A2, high value is 0, which means A2 will be loaded in these two registers. Once you load it, you latch it by disabling your DLAB bit. So again, you are using the line control register for clearing the DLAB bit, for clearing, but I need to retain the value for your the format of your data type. That is, I am disabling the parity and with the one stop bit and 8-bit character length. That is the one which I am choosing as a specific field. So you latch it by clearing the DLAB. So have the specific value. Then you have the FIFO control register. FIFO control register, here I am using 7. So refer the FIFO control register. So for transmission and the reception, what are the bits I'm using? So as it is given 07 means last 111. Okay. So which is to ensure the specific FIFOs of transmitter and the receiver. Then finally, I'm using the interrupt enable register. Okay. So this is just to enable your transmit and receive interrupts. Normally what happens is, say I have enabled the interrupt, as soon as my data is transmitted, so the specific timer, not the timer, the serial communication interrupt will be, since I have enabled, you can service whatever the function which you have written for the serial communication interrupt in your vector table. So it will extract the address of the function of serial communication and the interrupt service and execute that. So for which we are enabling the transmit and receiver interrupts. Okay. Similarly, when you receive a particular data character, as soon as the whole data is received, since you have enabled the interrupt for the reception as well, it can service the interrupts routine of the specific code, whatever you have given in that scene. Okay, this is just to have an additional feature. So whenever you transmit or receive any character, when the complete data is transmitted or received, provided the interrupt is enabled, you can get the interrupt service routine to be executed. Okay. Yeah, this is the initialization code. This is a standard code which we have in our all program wherever we are transmitting the message. Okay. So this is about the complete code which we have it, and this is the source file, hello world, and we have this is the configuration file. We have rtl.h, and you can see here it is nothing specific. Maybe so the different functions which are used are given in the, you can see there is an OS idle daemon. It will be running throughout, nothing is there. Okay, so clocking, Yeah, one thing you can check here is maybe when I explain you about the scheduling for say round robin scheduling, this bit need to be, that OS robin need to be set. Okay, so otherwise it will be clear, because I'm not using the round robin function. Yeah, and one more thing is the clock which I have used here. Define the operating system clock. Some specific 100 megahertz clock is used here. Okay. So default it is 6 megahertz, whatever is given here, but whatever the OS clock you are defined. Then so it's around specific. Yeah, this is about your the C file, the system file. You can see the clock setup, and so I have not done anything in this. It is given by the programmer, means who have designed the code for the system. They already given this, but you can see that PLL setup, the USB clock configurations, values, and yeah, this peripheral clock, peripheral control clock. So you can see there is a specific values loaded over here. Yeah, that's it. Maybe. Then we have this is a startup file. So we'll be including the startup file for all the programs. So there are certain definitions given for all the peripherals which you have, CAN, DMA, I2C, everything. So everything is defined over here. Whether you use it or not, it is they're defined in the code. Okay. So finally, the abstract.txt, it is mandatory to use. So you have some text file which is included over here. Okay. Yeah, this is about the program. When you build it, it will show there's no errors. Anyway, since you are familiar with the key, this one. Anyway, I have not connected Kit over here. I have saved the file. Let me show the execution video. The same file, whatever I have explained. So we'll be using the Flash Magic. Can you see the video?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello? So if you remember, we are having two tasks. One is displaying the task one, and with the count, and another one is another message is saying about welcome message. So those two tasks will run continuously. So we have a terminal, the hyper terminal in the system. It will echo that. You can you see the results? So you have task one, it will keep counting. Would you? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, we can see.
Yes, ma'am. This is it.
So it will say that task one, it will keep increment because I've used count one and count two. So task one with the specific count, and next task which is welcome to ECE MIT. So those two messages keep running throughout. Since it is a continuous function, it will keep running the same. Okay. So moving on.
Ma'am, I have one question.
Yeah, tell.
Ma'am, like in the code,
Yeah.
what I can observe is like the scheduling of the task is like kind of done by us only, done by the programmer only.
Yes.
Yes,
Scheduling
ma'am.
the task run by programmer in the sense, here I have used a simple program by using a delay function. That's it.
Yes, ma'am. That's delay function. That's correct,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yeah.
But ma'am, my question is, for example, in normal case, the scheduling will be done by the operating system, right? The real-time operating system.
Yeah, we will be using then. I am going to explain those things in the next coming classes.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Not the operating system. We need to have in our code which type of a scheduling.
Yes, ma'am.
Whether
So,
it
ma'am,
is a prefix. Yeah.
my question was simple. Like, for example, like the scheduling is done by the operating system, RTOS,
You. Yes.
and there are two tasks, task one and task two, and both of them wants to send a message,
Yeah.
XYZ, some length of a message.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
my question is like what if task one is transmitting a message and
Hmm.
it has been interrupted by the scheduler in between, and then it switches to task two, and then
Hmm.
it also starts to transmit the message.
Hmm.
So ma'am, this is not correct, right? The task one should complete the
See,
transmission of message.
it will interrupt based on what type of a scheduling you have it.
Yes, ma'am.
If it is in hardware interrupt, definitely it will go to that service. It is like a normal program itself, nothing specific. Okay, task is what? You have a set of instructions. You
No,
mean to
ma'am.
say
In,
whenever you are running some task one and it is interrupted, right?
no, ma'am. No, ma'am. My question was not that. My
Hmm.
question was, for example, RTOS says that I will do some kind of scheduling.
Fine.
So, ma'am, what does RTOS do? RTOS say that this amount of time is allotted to task one.
Hmm.
Yes, ma'am, and this amount of
Amount
time
of
is.
time, yeah, it is through your timer, whatever you have given. It will keep interrupting.
Yes, ma'am. So, what if the task one is not able to transmit the message fully and it got interrupted by the RTOS?
Okay.
And ma'am, task 2 also had the function to transmit the message and it starts transmitting the message.
Fine.
So ma'am, there is a problem here, right?
That's what I'm telling. Nothing, it won't be called as a problem over here because you mean to say task one is interrupted.
By the RTOS, yes ma'am.
Yeah, it will interrupt based on what? That makes a sense here.
But ma'am,
So what?
RTOS has allotted some kind of time, right? For example, I'll say task 1 will execute in 1 second, task 2 will get executed in 2 seconds. 1 second allotted to both of them. Yes ma'am, right? So
That uniform time will be given only for round robin scheduling. Otherwise, it won't.
yes
It
ma'am.
will take a random amount of time.
So ma'am, my question is, for example, in task one is transmitting a particular message, and he is not able to transmit the message in that 1 second schedule.
No issues. It will switch over to this task 2 and transmit whatever is given.
Yes, ma'am.
Based
But
on the priority given, it can come back.
no, ma'am. But if I'll see my serial line, then I'll see the scrambled message, right?
True, because I, I, I couldn't complete my data transmission in my task 1, right?
Yes, ma'am. So this has caused the corruption of data on the transmission line. Because essentially task 1 should have for example task 1 should have transmitted Ayush and task 2 should have transmitted Mittal, and because of the time constraint some random characters are appearing on the line, so this is a problem, right?
Random character will transmit, may not transmit here, because the way in which we write the code, right, the application here, we are writing, we are making it to run in that way. In general, in your case, you mean to say if there are some errors, right, some exceptions or the interrupt, then it is moving to the next task, and it is running something, and because of certain interrupt, it is switching to the task 2, and whatever the message it is supposed to transmit in task 2 can transmit.
Yes,
And due to what exception it has switched back. Say exception is nothing but here the task 1 was went to your blocking through some interrupt. You're getting it? Unless there is an error, it has to run it, right? Say whatever the exceptions you have it, whatever the interrupt. So it will interrupt, it will service that interrupt, and then based on the priority you have assigned in our RTX code, you have seen it, we make it very simple. We are assigning certain priority over here, initialization code with some certain priority, so that people can understand the way in which the program is written. So in our case, I have used task 1 as the higher priority than the task 2. So there should be some way in which the task 2 should run. Otherwise, the task 2 will not get a chance for a chance at all. Are you getting my point?
ma'am, just leave the question. You are not able to understand my question.
No, I understood your question. You mean to say there is an interrupt in between for the task 1 and it is switching to task 2.
Yes, ma'am. And now the line, for example, the task 1 said I will transmit Ayush, and task 2 said I will transmit Mittal. And the task 1, as soon as it transmit A by U, it switched to task 2. And now task 2 started to transmit the Mittal wala part.
Then there will be a mixed of random characters.
Yes, ma'am. So how will I stop this? I want that the task 1 should finish at any cost, and the scheduling should modify according to it.
Yeah, that is why we have given no in that you whatever the character I made a code in. Have you observed the code which I have written? So it keep transmitting the message till the status register.
Yes, ma'am, but it can be interrupted, right? Because RTOS has given a some definite amount of time to the task only.
Yeah, what type of interrupt you can have it? That makes a sense here. Here I have used only what are the interrupts you have enabled. That makes a sense. See,
Okay.
when you write a program, what are the interrupts are enabled? If it is a hardware interrupt, definitely there will be some errors, as you said. Otherwise, it won't. See, everything is your programming, right? I need to enable certain interrupt. Provided those interrupts are enabled only, it will service that. The normal. Suppose if I reset, definitely. Otherwise, it will go to the regular programming. You mean to say how to block your the type of interrupt, right? We need to disable the whatever the rest of the interrupt. Only that is the way in which you can.
Okay.
You get it?
Yes, ma'am.
In our program, we have not enabled any of the interrupt except my transmitter and the receiver interrupt. So transmitter and receiver interrupt will be detected only when you transmit the whole character which is there in your buffer, and receiver interrupt will be detected only when the entire character is received. Till then, it won't service any of the interrupt unless you have a reset. There could be some other reason, the faults in your the communication. That may happen. Then anyway, you have to restart. You're getting it? So everything is any program. Here our intention is to understand in a simple way how the operating system is used. So this is very simple code so that we'll be able to understand the different the switching between the two tasks and how we can have the communication among the tasks, okay, with a different simple type of scheduling. Did I answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
No, I just want to know whether so that I can. Are you convinced?
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yes,
unless you enable any interrupt, it won't go to that particular interrupt. In my code, in our code, whatever we have not enabled any of the interrupt, the one which you can see, right? Simply it
yes.
won't service any of the interrupt unless you enable that. Yeah? Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I think we're done with the UART coding. This is what. So I have shown the example program with the specific program which we have run, and we'll move on to the timers. So this is again a theory. Why we are discussing this? Because so let me tell you the reason behind. For any of your operating system, it will run with the specific timer. There is a hardware timer used. So what are the timers used in the Cortex-M3? We have to have a little knowledge about the timers of Cortex-M3 and the basic principle of working of a timer. Okay. So have you studied any of the timers in your any of the course specific? The principle behind using of a timer. I mean, how the timer functions, timer functions. Your hardware and the software. Do you have any idea? Hello? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
So do you have an idea of how the timer is used?
Yes, ma'am. So depending on the length of the timer, usually since this is ARM is 32-bit, so we can put in a divisor basically that lets you call an interrupt. Basically, it will provide an interrupt whenever the timer reaches a certain value, and then the timer is reset. So using that, we can provide a very precise delay of down to a few microseconds.
Okay. So let me show you one diagram. Those who are not, 1 second. Yeah. Now just show you those timer counters. So you can see over here a simple. You have a timer register, a basic timer. You give a clock, and the whatever the value you have it in the timer, you keep decrementing. Suppose if you start with zeros, if you have a 16-bit register, keep incrementing. If it is a increment timer, if it is a decrement timer, keep decrementing. When it becomes zeros, it will give you a flag. It will set a flag, means whatever the amount of delay you have used for that is done. Okay. So that is the simple. Suppose you have yeah. This is a timer counter. You have 16-bit timer counter, whatever. So you can assign what type of what mode you are planning. In a simple way, maybe I have. I'll give you in this way. Say I have a 2 registers. So this is a PDF, I think. Yeah. So I have a 2 register. Suppose a 16-bit register where I am loading a value. So 16-bit register can have up to FF. And I have another register. Okay. So which can automatically load. So supposing I start with 0, 0, 0, keep incrementing the value in this register, it goes up to FFFF. Okay, when it becomes FFFF, means the timer is overloaded, there is a flag set. So this incrementing of that value depends on the clock you give. That is a clock tick. Okay, whether it is incrementing with each second, each microsecond, or with what. Suppose if I have the particular clock of incrementing with the 1 microsecond, then 0 with the FFFF, whatever the value, that is 64K. Okay, so FFFF into 1 microsecond will be the total delay. Okay, so this is something like I can auto reload with the value. So this is the simple principle of using your the timer. I mean, you want to have a certain amount of delay. You can use the mode register to set up whether I want to use it in a simple 16-bit mode timer or depending upon your processor or a controller. Suppose it is a 8-bit controller. If you have a 16-bit register in a timer, I can have a 8-bit or a 16-bit or auto reload mode. The different modes of operations are given. Again, we can have a discrimination between the timer and the counter. Timer is for setting up a certain amount of delay, and the counter is to have an event count. I want to count the number of events. Event counting. Suppose how many number of people have crossed. So the principle is same, but it keep counting with the counter clock. Okay. So the maximum limit will be the register again. The maximum count I can have only the register limit. So this is just a principle of timer counter. You will be having different types of timer with the prescaler, the clocking with the prescale. You can have a mode. Okay, so different types of timers you have. Yeah, as I've just mentioned here, you have a counter and a terminal count. You just compare the two values. Okay, and whenever they are equal, you set a flag. Okay, so this is just to explain you the principle of timer count. So coming to our Cortex M3, hoping that all of you know about the timer and the counter. Simple principle is the delay amount, whatever the delay I want to keep, okay, that will be loaded in the timer register. So in the Cortex M3, we have got so many number of timers, and there are specific registers in the timers. Okay, let us see the timer of Cortex M3 in detail. So in many operating systems, hardware timer is used to generate the interrupts. So that operating system can carry out your task management. So various. So task management, that is creating the task, deleting the task, and switching between the tasks. There are so many things. everything will be managed through your timers. So which can allow your multiple tasks to run at different time slots. I think I'm coming to the question you have asked. So, and make sure that no single task can lock up the whole system. Okay, you shouldn't. So if there are multiple number of tasks, let us say, there should be a chance given to whichever the task you have it in the ready list. So to do that, the timer needs to be able to generate interrupts. It should generate the interrupts. If possible, it should be protected from your user task. It should be protected from your user task so that the user application cannot be timer behavior. Shouldn't change the timer behavior. So your Cortex M3 includes simple timer because all Cortex M3 chips have the same timer and the same software. So you have the timer is a 64-bit down counter. It's a 64-bit down counter. It can use internal free running processor clock signal on the Cortex M3. Okay. So let us see, there is the system clock will be decided by the chip designers. So it varies between your products. So you need to refer the data sheet. What is the clock frequency used in your motherboard? Your system clock timer is controlled by 4 registers. That is control and status registers. This is the address of it. Anyway, need not remember. And we have a reload value register, current value register, calibration value registers. So there are different types of, different registers used to control your timer. The calibration value register provides solution for application to generate the same system interrupt interval when it is running on various. Anyway, we are not bothered about it. So we have this is the control and status register. The reload value register, the basic principle I have just mentioned will be the same. And what is my current value register? So these three are the most. Okay. Yeah. So this is regarding your calibration register, how you calibrate the registers. To set up the system tick timer, the programming sequence will be like this. So disable the systic by writing 0 in the systic control and status register. Okay. This is the sequence of programming, and you can reload a value in the reload value register and write to the current value register to clear this. These are the steps which we follow. And control register. Okay, write to the systic control and status register to start the timer. So any timer in general, we need to program it, right? There will be a timer registers. If I tell about your the very basic 8051 controller, we have a timer register. Okay, so timer register, and we have got a timer mode register. In timer mode register, we will have to put certain values in the timer mode registers, like whether I'm using which mode of the timer, and whether I'm enabling the counter timer, and the mode of operations, that is 8-bit timer or a 16-bit timer or auto reload mode likewise. So those are the initialization, which means what I mean here is we need to program the timer because all are programmable peripherals. We need to program it exactly in the same way. We have a certain the specific registers. These are all special registers. We will be using this to program the timer. Coming to LPC 1768, there are 4 identical timer peripherals in the LPC 17. So LPC 1768 is your memory mapped peripheral, right? I have the ARM Cortex along with the different peripherals which you have seen in your architecture of the LPC 1768. It has got timer 0, 1, 2, 3. All 4 timers are 32-bit, okay, with the 32-bit prescaler, programmable 32-bit prescaler. So they are designed to count cycles of peripherals clock or an external clock signal. And you can optionally generate interrupts or other actions, okay, based on the timer interrupt. There are some certain timer interrupts. So it compare with your match register. When it finds equal, then you can set up a flag or the timer interrupt, provided that interrupt is enabled. So if it is enabled, it is going to service the function which is returned for the timer interrupt routine. Okay. Yeah. So for all your timer registers in the specific LPC 1768, timer, counter, and prescale registers are very important. So they are responsible for your timer's functionality. So after your peripheral reset and enabled, this timer counter register is initialized to 0 and is incremented by 1 for every prescale register clock plus 1 clock cycles. Okay. Means your the timer counter register will be incrementing for the clock which you set. Suppose I have a 32-bit register, 32-bit register. It can go up to FF, right? So maximum value. So start with 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Depending upon what prescale value you have used as a timer tick, and goes to maximum of this value. This is the maximum. That is the amount of delay you have. That is the amount of delay you get it. Yeah. For example, if your prescale register, prescale register is 0, then timer counter increments at every cycle of your peripheral clock, as I just mentioned. Suppose if I have a 1 microsecond, then FF, whatever corresponding decimal value, that much amount of delay you can have, the maximum, maximum. But in Cortex M3, if it is 0, it increments at every cycle. Look at the complexity. If PR is set to 1, then your timer increments for 2 cycles. Double the 2 cycles of your peripheral clock. Okay. So this 2 registers are used to generate your precise delays. Any clarifications? Hello?
No, ma'am. It's clear.
So there is a match register. For each timer, we have got match register. So user can load the value into these match registers, and for every timer increment, the value in the compared with the match register. Okay. So compare with the match register. the values are matched, then the match register can perform, an interrupt can be generated, or your timer counter register will be reset, and timer counter and prescale register will be stopped, and corresponding TCR will be set to 0. So all these actions can be performed. Okay. So as I said, there will be a flag, means it's an interrupt. It can service the interrupt, and automatically it can clear the data by, or you can load something onto it, whatever. So those things can be done. Compare. Suppose this is my match register and this is my timer counter register. Yeah, this is the timer control register. This is used to control your timer counter functions. Used to control your timer counter functions. Enable, disable, and reset. So bit 0 is counter enable, bit 1 for counter reset. We have timer counter register, as I just mentioned, maximum values 32-bit FFFFF, and it wraps back to 0 and begins incrementing again. So this increment is done for every PR plus 1 cycles of your peripheral clock. Then I have a prescale register. So this specifies the maximum value for the prescale counter, is the clocking. Okay. When PC value is equal to the value in the prescale register, PC is implemented in the next clock cycle. Okay. And we have a prescale counter register. Okay. So this is a 32-bit register. The value is incremented on every clock cycle. So this is for the counter. This is for the counter. Okay. So that you can find the number of counter. And when PR is 0, the TC increment on every clock cycle. When is 1, increments on 2 peak clock cycle. That I just mentioned. Match control register. So this is used to control the operation on the timer counter when one of your match register with the matches with the timer counter register. Okay. So you have a specific bit. So bit 0, bit 1, and bit 2. When bit 1 my match control register, when it is 1, an interrupt is generated, and when your match register is matches with your timer counter. Okay. It will compare your timer counter with the match register. It compares. If they are equal, then an interrupt can be generated. And your second bit 1, it reset the timer counter if there is a match, and if it is 2, you will be programming it. So whatever you have loaded, based on it, it does the job. So if this is 1, the bit 2 is 1, then PR and stop the timer counter and prescale register and set your timer counter register 0 to 0, the significant bit. Then there is a match. So everything happens whenever there is a matching with the match register. This is another special register used in the timer, used to count control register, used to select either timer mode or the counter mode, whether you are using the specific timer as a timer or the counter. If it is a timer, you need to provide the delay. If it is a counter, it needs to count according to the clock you are given. So maximum count would be the size of your register. Yeah, this is about your the calculating your timer prescalers. Okay, so select the peripheral clock for the timer, and with the help of your peripheral clock, select 0 and select 1 registers. Okay, you can set up a specific prescale values. So you can set by default. I think we are using this the clock system, whatever the clock by 4. This is by default. If you want to do something, you need to put the different value. If it is 0, 1, peripheral clock will be the same as your clock, and 1, 0 divided by 2 if it is 1, 1 divided by 8. Okay, by default we'll be using this. So U1 clock, your timer clock will be your 1 over peripheral clock, right? Suppose if I have 12 megahertz, then your TP clock will be whatever the clock which I am using. Yeah, the minimum time duration, the resolution of your timer. How do you find the resolution of a timer? Produced by a timer is given by resolution of a timer is given by whatever the value you have, P-scale register plus 1 divided by peripheral clock. This gives you the resolution. Okay. So from this we can calculate, using this expression, we can calculate the PR value for various timer resolutions. For example, if we want 1 millisecond resolution on a timer with a 25 megahertz peripheral clock, then your PR, the value which you are going to load, will be given with this. Okay, so peripheral clock is 25 megahertz, and the resolution here is 1 millisecond. So 25 megahertz into 1 millisecond minus 1 gives the value of your PR. So you need to know what is the expression for finding the value to be loaded in the your prescale register. Yeah, this is again initialization. I think I'll continue in the next class. The initialization of a timer of LPC 1768. Maybe in 5 minutes I can. 1 second. So initialization of timer 0 in LPC 1768. We have the peripheral control register and select register. We need to know what are the specific bits we'll be using. You set. Okay, so the clock will be clock by 4 by default, and the mode register, timer mode in the CTCR register, and get the value of your prescale register for the specific, and reset the timer to reset the timer counter and prescale register values. This is done through your timer control register. We have a timer control register. So initially we reset the timer counter because I start with the 000. Okay. So this is again by recalling the different registers I have just explained. Now we need to, supposing I'm using a timer for generating the delay, how do I delay using the LPC 1768 timers? Here, use a timer 0 an example. You make use of the initialization function which I have shown in the previous, and this timer counter register is reset. Then you enable the timer. So in order to generate your milliseconds amount of delay, compare your PC value to the milliseconds, and once they match, exit or disable the timer. Okay, so you will be writing this function. So LPC underscore timer 0 check with your TC whatever the milliseconds you want to, and once it is done, disable the timer. Initially you enable the timer, compare, you keep counting with the values for a specific amount of delay. This millisecond delay which I am intending means suppose I want say 10 second delay, then what should be the value to be low? I need to compare. Okay, so that we'll be knowing, and we should know it, and it will compare with that particular value. Once it is done, you disable the timer. So programming with the timer would be very simple, but only thing is we need to know what are the initialization are done with the timer. Yeah, this is just an example given. So we can see here the same thing, initialization, P-scale initialization. So you reset PC and PR. This is timer initialization function, and you have a delay here. Okay, you enable the timer. And check for the specific delay, and you disable the timer. So this is about the timer, which I wanted to tell, because later, even though we don't use those timers, but if you look into the different the configuration files, or any of the system files, then there will be some specific registers used, and you should have an idea that, okay, what are these registers and how these timers are used. So in general, what I want to convey is, whenever we are using operating system, everything will be synchronized with the timer. Will be a hardware timer of your the board. So because I'm running the code on the board, and with what clocking you will be using to control the various applications which matters. So we'll be using the timer for a certain delay, because it is the delay application is done through, it's provided if you're using through the timer of your LPC 1768. Okay, then we need to know that what are the, how you program the timers. Okay, so I think I did a little fast. I don't know. Do you have any doubts? Hello?
No, ma'am.
Because the basic principle is the same as the one which you have studied in any of your processor, I hope. I don't know whether in microprocessor gone through the timers, but this principle of working is the same. Okay, but only the name which we have it are the different. So there will be a different registers. You need to understand what are the bits are used to check whether the timer, the specified delay is taken care or not. If there are no doubts, 1 second. So we'll leave then. Hello?
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah.